already people are sending in. We've got 3 text messages straight away. Two of them are about the referees and the bunkers, and the other one's from Andrew from Manly, where they're saying Tommy's back, so Manly are back. Life's good, and that's fair enough, right? As soon as he comes back, you win games. Funny that, but overall, everyone's really frustrated about what's going on. What's your take on it, mate? Okay, and that's a very leading question, but what's your take on it? And if you can, let's work out some solutions.
Well, here's the comparison to my golf game that I was talking about.
Yes.
On Saturday, I started poorly. Then I start getting a groove, and I can string together 3 to 4 good holes in a row.
Right.
But when it falls apart, it dramatically goes bad.
Yep.
And that might be a couple of holes in a row. And at the end of the game, I sit there thinking to myself, one, I'm not playing consistently enough.
Yep.
And the second and the main thing is, I refuse to get lessons. I refuse to ask for help. That's my compromise with it. So instead of me complaining about how bad my golf game is and that I haven't improved from a 11 to 12 to 13 handicap over the last year, I know after games when I go and see the pro and I sort of break down what's happening in my game, he's saying to me the same things every week. The bunker officials, the people who are running the game right now, are consistently making mistakes. And I don't know if there are enough people within the game or the people who are making decisions that are outsourcing explanations and help from people either directly involved in the game, which can be tough. Don't get me wrong, that can be problematic in the sense where there'd probably be coaches with their own team's advantages.
Of course. Self-interest, it's called.
Self-interest, that they would be considering. But I think there are enough people who care enough about the game that are close enough to the game that could have an opinion, that could maybe come in and just give them a feel for what's going wrong and where they think it's going wrong. Because some of the incidents over the weekend, and here's another really good indication. Jimmy, I love watching my pressers after the game.
You do?
And listening to coaches, to hear other coaches who are benefiting from some of the rules against them on a given week being sympathetic for the opposition coaches and teams is super problematic.
So I think that's a really interesting point too. So sympathetic to the coaches, but I think everyone in this point is sympathetic to the players, right? Because the players must be running out there going, okay, what's going on? To see Brock Gray last night, first tackle that he made, he's in the sin bin. Second tackle that he makes, he's giving away a penalty. Then he twists his knee. That's just a little piece of. But can you imagine his frustration about what's going on? But if we're looking at the application of the laws for the safety of the players, right, and that's what we're looking at, it's the inconsistencies around that application that is the most concerning, I would say.
Agreed.
Right. So we're all looking at it last night. We went, Isaiah Yeo, not a dirty player, highly decorated, clean skin. A guy we all love as a player and as a person. Should have been sent to the sin bin. Why? I don't know. Status of the game, status within the game for Isaiah Yeo. The fact that it was Tommy T too, and mitigating circumstances, slippery field, he's falling. There is no doubt that no amount of defensive training on his technique would have prevented Isaiah Yeo from hitting Tom Trbojevic in the head in that tackle last night. Would you agree with that?
Agreed.
Right. So then it would have been really harsh to send him to the sin bin, but based on what we've seen, it would have been right.
Agreed.
Okay. Then we complain about, isn't it horrible, 6 games of rugby league and 15 players in the sin bin? Well, really, what we're actually saying is it should have been 16.
Agreed. And here's the part of the Isaiah Yeo tackle that you have to consider. And this is one of my main points of this. If player safety and health are at the forefront of what they're trying to do with cracking down on these rules,
yes,
I think they're making it even worse on the players. And what I mean by that is there is so much more fatigue that is being put into the players due to really soft calls during games, sometimes at the start of the games to set a tone, which is then adding to the fatigue of players that are already under the pump that have been getting fitter and trying to adjust to games ever since the 6 again rule come in, where players are just constantly trying to keep up with trends. And when you send a player off the field, it's actually, especially if it's a really minor defense, it's actually at a detriment to the players. The rest of the, 25 that are on the field, or the 24 that may be on the field, and then the other players that play a part in the back end of the game too. Because they're so much more tired than they would have been at the start of the game, Jimmy, if you didn't send players to the bin for ticky-tack offences.
So I'll take an alternate viewpoint on that. Well, firstly, why was Tom Trbojevic not sent for a head injury assessment?
Well, yeah, that's another question.
There's another part of it.
With a whole other bunch of other ones over the weekend.
A whole bunch of questions, exactly, associated with that. Moses Leota got hit in the head with the ball, right? They called it, and then the Panthers regathered the ball. And then they said, well, hang on, we're going to challenge that. And I'm like, all well and good, all within the laws of the game. Quite rightly, didn't get his hand up, hit him in the lug hole, and Nathan Cleary got the ball back. Great, fantastic. We arrived at the right decision. At what price? We then had a 2-minute break while Belinda Sharp went upstairs, took the time to arrive at that. And now I'm thinking, every interchange thought you had, change it. I don't need to rest those middles just yet. They've had their rest. A 2-minute recovery at that point of the game changes everything. So then they start saying, oh, yeah, but the fatigue into the game. I'm like, I'm not sure it's there. I know it's there when there's 12 on the field. I'm not sure it's there at other times when there's so many stoppages during the course of a match. And one of the beauties, one of the attractions of the game is its lack of stoppages. That's one of the... We say, oh, look at that. It's been 4.5 minutes since there's been a stoppage. This is amazing. That's taken away from us by the constant need to get it right. The other one that's really challenging, I think, is when we have Siosiwa Tokiaho playing the ball, and then we go back to an incident earlier in the match where he was hitting Isaiah Papali'i high. So, sorry, don't play the ball. Go to the sin bin for 10 minutes because we found something a minute and a half ago.
Yeah, that's a frustrating one.
That's crazy.
That's another one that's frustrating to me where, for sure, there are going to be the odd case in the next couple of weeks or even, if I think specifically about some contact over the weekend where, all right, it felt like the Bulldogs players, a lot of them deserved what happened to them on the weekend. I think
they lost control on
Thursday,
the Bulldogs. Yeah, I agree.
They lost the plot. And a big part of my sort of take on that game, which we'll get to in a bit, they wanted to prove to everyone that they were tough and not going to get run over by the Broncos pack, and completely lost the plot.
Yep.
So what happened because of that game on Thursday night, which set the tone, where I agree with almost every one of those decisions that happened on the... In fact, I thought there was even one where I think there was a Bulldogs player who got away with Sitili Tupanua. He raised his leg into the head of Brendan Piakura, and he really should have been sent off.
Should have been
sin-binned, sorry.
Yep.
But because there had been so many already in that game, it was actually Marcelo Montoya who probably had a less egregious tackle on him a couple of tackles later, who was sent because of Sitili.
And what could Marcelo do about that in the tackle? That was the player, again, turning and falling.
Ricocheted.
And falling.
Yeah.
Like he couldn't do anything about it. But then we overlay it with, what's the overall issue at the heart of it? Participant safety. So you can't hit them in the head. There is going to be a response from the coaches because the coaches... So it's almost like that staring competition between the players and the coaches and the clubs and the league that's saying we want to make it safe for our players, all right, and we're going to apply the laws in these fashions. There will have to be a response from the coaches talking about, hey, we just can't go anywhere near it, and guess what? We're going to practice it. So it sounds you're still going to get that falling player where split second and you can't do anything about it. And then the league will say this. Let's overlay it with this. One, we've got a real issue because we're going into a broadcast negotiation. The last thing we need to be doing is talking down our game. The other part, and creating a furor. The other part about it is record TV ratings, record people turning up at the gate. So in their mind, they're like, we're doing something right. They had the application of the laws since round 5, right? Round 7, they got record crowds.
Yeah. I've thought about that a lot as well over the last couple of weeks. A big part of this too, and again, going back to the player safety. So when you add fatigue by sending players off for really minor offences, which then, in my opinion, fatigues the players even more so, which leads to fatigue, more errors, more lapses of judgment later on with their contact.
Yes.
The other part of this as well if you start defending conservatively moving forward as players, I think that's, and what I mean by that is, instead of going in with your shoulder with good contact, you really start to coach up bear tackling, basically, where you're, as best you can, try not to lead with the shoulder and then maybe chest tackle. That's when you see tackles like the Moses Sully tackle on Jared Arroyo-Hargraves last year off the kickoff, where what they're trying to do is trying to stay nice and square for as long as possible. The offensive player who's got the ball, they're carrying it with all the venom. That was a whiplash, and that was a contact injury to Moses Sully, where he was deflected into, I think it was Jaden Sewer's shoulder, which knocked out Moses Sully.
Yep.
You'll see more of them for the defenders because then they won't be able to protect themselves.
I think for me, defensively, it's going to go the other way. I think there will be more of a reliance on lowering target zone, making sure footwork defensively and hitting with shoulder, as opposed to that more upright catching that you're talking about. So I think that's going to be a response.
See, but the reason I think it's going to be the other way, it's because like you look at the Takiaho one, the Brock Gray one, the Jamin Jolliffe one. They're guys making tackles who are just at the last minute dipping with their shoulder, and because of the connection that is sometimes going around the waist, the offensive ball carrier is dropping their contact.
Dropping quickly yeah.
At the last minute, and then it's shoulder to head contact, which the defender is trying their best to avoid.
Yep.
But because of the mitigating circumstances of a player losing their level of, where their head originally starts, the most notable one over the weekend is it was so avoidable. It's very hard to avoid, is the Latrell one on Su'a-Fa'alongo.
Totally.
Did you see how much he was dipping, Jimmy?
Of course.
He was low. He was probably, and Latrell's 6'3". Su'a-Fa'alongo would be 5'8", 5'9" at tops.
Yep.
Right? In that moment, Latrell's got nice and low, coming in hard. He's trying to prevent a try, and not to say that I agree with the binning because of the contact. Right? He hits him high in the end.
Yeah.
But what else is he supposed to do?
Correct.
There's nothing else. There's nothing else he can do in that situation. Well, unless he whiffs on a few plays like other fullbacks did by just trying to get an intercept. That's the only other option Latrell's got at that point where Su'a-Fa'alongo is at the point of contact.
Yeah, it's
so hard, mate. It is so hard for these players to defend.
It is incredibly difficult, and so. If we acknowledge it's difficult from the players' point of view and the coaches' responses, then we're going to get that. It's now become, let's have a look at, another part of it is the officiating of it, right? And again, we've talked about it a lot on this program. I've talked a lot about it over the last 2 years. Consistency through decision-making by those people who are in the bunker and in the middle. It's just becoming more and more obvious. Do we have, if you say, we've got the 4 greatest fullbacks in the league or the 4 greatest halfbacks, and we can click 3 greatest halfbacks. We can clearly separate that. Do you reckon we can do something with the referees?
No, we can't.
I reckon we can.
Oh, with the 3 top referees. Yeah.
Yeah. Do we reckon we've got the 4? We could identify the 4 best senior review officials?
Yeah.
I reckon we could, right?
Yeah. 4-4 split.
Just
for
use
both
them all
of
the
them.
time. Use them all the time.
Yeah.
Adam G's out. He's doing 3 games as senior review official. He's got a hamstring issue, right? And that's going to happen during the course. So you've got others, they're doing games, but you don't use 8 different ones for the week. Why use 8?
And this is what, you reminded me about a point that I was going to get to before where I went on a bit of a tangent, coming back to it. If the people that are closest to the game, and what I mean by that is the on-field referees don't see any contact and a video referee picks it up after the fact.
E.g. Siwa Takiaho last night.
Number of them. There was maybe 4 or 5 over the weekend.
Yeah, there has been.
Then communicate to the referee that something was missed, unless it's egregious, Jimmy, unless it's blatant.
Elbow,
correct,
swinging arm.
Whatever it may be.
Yep.
Then it's only put it on report and let the match review panel look at it. Because if the referee on the field that is closest to the contact and can get a feel for the game better than anyone else, then a person sitting up on the bunker who goes and looks at a super slow-mo where the last minute there's a little graze of some contact from either the forearm or a shoulder to the head, then just put it on report and let's deal with it throughout the week.
Totally agree with that. Totally agree with that. The counter is, but the team that the perpetration happened against don't get the benefit of it. But you can't get everything.
But if it's egregious,
right.
Jimmy,
That's right.
Then send them.
But Torquioho's won last night. If you'd have said, okay, in the next break of play, they're packing a scrum or someone scored a try and Belinda Sharp went, oh, by the way, CSEWA, you're on report for a tackle that happened a couple of minutes ago. You just go, great, right, move on. Game's moving on. We keep that continuous nature of the game, which is what we've decided that we like, which is one of the great things about the game.
But here's the thing as well, too, with those contacts, pretty much how many of them over the weekend, and we're talking about the health of players, how many of those shots that led to sin binning, the players that it happened to actually went off and had to have a HIA?
Great point.
Hardly any.
Great point.
I can't even remember. Off the top of my head, I can't remember one. Maybe someone in the text line, 0457 736 736. If they are that bad to the players that have been hit, and we're trying to look after the players, I can't remember one case over the weekend where the player that got hit in the head actually had to go off for an assessment.
It's a great point, and it's again something we've talked about on this program. I had Willow from Windsor contacting me and said, if this is it, why is that player not? Why did Tom Trbojevic not leave the field?
And to the players, and it's not the players' fault, because I want to make this clear as well. If a player jests for it, and then it's either awarded and someone goes off, then I'm all for that player has to get sent for that. But there are a couple of players a number of occasions where the player didn't even know that it had or had whinged that it had happened to him, right? They just had taken a carry, got up and played, didn't jest for the penalty, didn't carry on. So therefore, I don't want them to be punished. I do not want them to be sent off for a HIA because they didn't even feel it, Jimmy.
And then we go the other way, right? And we see the situation last night where Tom Jenkins goes into contact and throws the head back, and you go, hang on, penalty, high shot. Jazz Tavanga says, challenge it. He straight away said to his captain, Daly, challenge it. So they challenged it. Here's another stoppage. They challenged it. Tom didn't get hit anywhere near his head. So what we've got is Jazz. Jazz was right. Great. We got the correct decision. At what cost of the time? At what cost of everyone sitting at home going, oh, Tom Jenkins, what are you doing? This is not football. Stop diving.
And at what cost of Belinda Sharp trying to referee the best way she possibly can?
Great point.
Because she's on a number of occasions been overruled where they've come back.
Yes.
Ashley Kine has overruled her, picked up something that wasn't even seen or she didn't deem to be high contact. And then 5 plays later, a player's been sent to the bin. And then the one that she gives a penalty, it's a captain's challenge and she's overruled.
And she's wrong.
What's her... And I'm sympathetic to her moving forward, not only in this game. So, I don't know.
Absolutely. There we go. We've solved it. Great. I'm glad we've sorted all that out in the space of about 20 minutes on a Sunday afternoon. Thanks for watching. For more great content, subscribe to SEN League, your home of the greatest game of all.